we're having this evening, obviously depending on where you're logging in from. And this is a webinar dubbed a masterclass in how to build an effective team or a truly cohesive team. And so we're really excited to have you here on board with us, listening to me, Catherine, Mary, and myself. And we will just give it about 1 or 2 more minutes as our fellow participants do log in from wherever they are. What I will ask you, because I can see everyone is from different walks of life, if you can tell us, give us your name and tell us where you're logging in from in the chat, then we can get to know you and know who's joining us this evening, who's joining Mary, Catherine, and I. But very welcome. Thank you so much for joining in. Let's see who goes first. Mary, where are you joining us from?
I was about to say I will be first, and I'll say I'm joining in from Nairobi. My name is Mary, and I'm joining in from Nairobi. Anybody else?
Catherine, where are you joining us from?
No, from Nyanyuki, sorry. Oh my goodness, I relocated yesterday. Sorry, guys.
So Mary is joining us from Nyanyuki. Catherine is joining us from Nairobi, I believe.
From Nairobi, yes.
From Nairobi. And then we have a Jeffrey from Kisumu. Welcome, Jeffrey. We have Julia from Nairobi, who's working at Fertility Point. We have Becky from Nairobi. Christine Asiko, who's from Nairobi. Then we have Emmanuel Habari, Emmanuel from Dar. We have Evelyn Laboso from Kericho. Eunice Ayuma from Nairobi. Just keep those chats coming in. Where are you logging in from? We have Chris Wakube from Nairobi. We have Job from Jacaranda Health, Nairobi. We have Fiona Oringi from Uganda. Welcome, Fiona, and welcome everybody who's joining us. We have from Gaborone, Botswana, Boipuso Masala. I hope I have not massacred your name, but welcome very much from TKM Engineering. Welcome to this webinar. We have Irene Elijah from Nairobi. We have Kiobokile Shiping from Botswana again, Gaborone. Thank you very much for joining. Warabile, I'm really hoping that I'm pronouncing this the right way because I know I am sensitive about my name. Shimolongo, and if I don't pronounce it the right way, you feel free to correct me. From TKM Engineering, Gaborone, Botswana, thank you. And is it Gaborone or Gaborone? Yes.
That's a feeling the English say Gaborone, the Gaboronians say Gaborone.
Gaborone.
Yes.
Gaborone. Thank you so much for joining us from Gaborone. And Jwaneng, Botswana. And Bungoma, Kenya. It's quite a varied number of people on this webinar, and we're really grateful to host you today. So as we continue receiving people, and of course you telling us where you're from, we invite you to write on the chat what one word for you represents teamwork. Just one word, not a sentence. What one word represents teamwork? Actually, I do believe I had a word cloud ready. So let's go to word cloud. For those of you who have a device, you can see my, can you see my screen?
Yes, you've just started sharing, but we can't see it yet. But you've started sharing. It's not yet fully on.
There?
Now we can see it.
Good. So if you can get to Mmentimeter, you can use this code, but I can see there are words coming through. This collaboration as a one word. But if you can also get to Mmentimeter, you can go to menti.com on your phone or on your laptop or on your PC device. And you can use the code 8242. I'll put it on the chat. The link is menti.com. Menti.com, and the code is 82422632. 82422632. I can see another word, unity. And we have someone, Pedzani Chokwe from Botswana as well. Thank you for joining in. Synergy is from Job Makoyo. Synergy is one word. I can see collaboration coming through. If you find on Zoom, you have the collaboration, cohesive. Cohesion, there's also cohesion. Let me see what I'll put. Menti.com, the code is there on the chat. We have support, we have together. 82. We also have unity still going on. 82422632. What are you getting, Mary? We have 6 responses so far.
Yes, I put in together. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, 6. Come on, guys. Let's move. Get this. You can put in more words. I see there's opportunity to put 2 more. You can put maximum of 3. I've got a word that I'm thinking of. I'm going to put it. I'm going to Google nt.com again.
Yeah. So we have communication. Catherine, what do you see? What's coming through for you?
Results, unity, vision.
Vision. On the chat, I'm
Politics.
seeing align.
Interesting.
Politics. Maybe we can elaborate on politics. We have aligned, we have cooperation, we have synergy, we have visionary as well. And we have, I think collaboration is taking the cup. Synergy, cohesion, and collaboration seem to be the top 3. Yes, Mary?
Now, saying maybe we could repeat again the instructions for those who have never used Menti again, slowly.
On the chat, I have put menti.com. That's the link. You can click it and it will take you to menti.com, and it's written Mmentimeter. So with Mmentimeter, you have to put in a code, and the code is 82422632. It is also on the chat. I'm putting it again. Someone from the team is also going to put it over and over again. 82422632. There you go. We have 19 responses, still collaboration, cohesion, and synergy, especially synergy. Synergy seems to be the big one. We have 20 and collaboration is growing. So we'll give it another minute. Let's see what we get. Unity is also growing. On the side there, we have unit, we have together, we have politics, we have transparency, very important in a team. We have results, yeah. And we have oneness from Brian on the chat. We have Ubuntu from Maximilian. Another response. Okay, we have respect as well as one of the things, one of the words that we can use to describe a team. So the big ones really coming through are collaboration, cohesion, support, and then synergy, unity. We'll park this for a short while, just for a short while. We'll come back to it to see if there's anything else that has been filled. And then we will start our session today with this team to just delve into the topic of the day. I don't know how many of you are really thinking about what does a cohesive team mean? Why cohesive? And what does the words like collaboration, unity, what are those things that we feel or we associate with great teams? How do you feel when you're in a great team? You know, a team that's performing, how do you feel? How do you feel being part of that team? And so this class today is just meant to take us through some of the things that we can use to start understanding what great teams are like, how we can then be able to harness our collective potential, our collective intelligence to really work together and come up with solutions or innovations that drive business. Sometimes it's just driving agendas. Sometimes it's just, having a team that is working towards CSR. So whatever your team is looking at doing, teams are there, and I find that we always work together in teams. So I'll start by really introducing who Profiles International is. And this webinar is brought to you by Profiles International, leading talent company, talent management solutions company in Nairobi, but actually in the East African region. We work with Tanzania a lot, with Uganda. We also work in the West African region and the North African region. So we're really a Pan-African footprint. And we represent a brand called Wiley, who have for many years been in the area of research and education. So a lot of the things that you will find us talking about have been developed by the Wiley Talent Learning Solutions, where they invest in really finding out what is sound research behind some of the things that we're going to share with you. How can then we educate ourselves each and every single day? Because sometimes we teach ourselves a lot of the technical stuff, but we forget that the softer side of life needs equally as much attention if we're to grow in that skill of leading teams. We also represent Genus, a brand in emotional intelligence, and we like calling it applied emotional intelligence because it's really about this word called EI and how it shows up at work, and trying to develop the behaviors that talk about how to show up in a more emotionally intelligent way at the workplace. And then these are the brands that we represent.
Vicky, just a quick one.
Yes.
We've lost your PowerPoint.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and we can't see your face either, but it's a lovely face. I'd love to see it. But more importantly, we've lost the PowerPoint.
Okay, are you back with me?
It started sharing. It's back with you. If somebody will make it 100%, then we do. Yeah,
there
now yeah, thank you.
Thank you, thank you. So these are the brands that we are associated with, and PXT Select is one of our recruitment tools, psychometric tools. We have the Everything Disc brand, which really speaks to personality and growing team awareness as well as self-awareness. Then we have Cross Knowledge, which is really a digital platform for learning and being champions in the learning space. This is one area that we really hope to go into in the next year. And of course, Genus International. Now, this webinar is brought to you by the 5 behaviors of a cohesive team, a Wiley brand, and we're going to be delving a little bit more about what 5 behaviors is all about. The 3 lovely ladies who will be with you today are on your screen now, and I will start with Catherine Tole, a fellow 5 behaviors practitioner and a fellow Genus EI practitioner and a coach, executive coach and a leadership coach. And we have been in this space for quite some time now, talking and training on conversations around both emotional intelligence, awareness, personality, so on and so forth. And Catherine will introduce herself shortly. Then we have Mary Mokindyo, who is a leadership transition coach. In fact, she also tells me she's a mindset coach because she believes that a lot of times it's the mindset that needs to change for us to take advantage of just what opportunity we have there. And she's also an emotional intelligence expert and a 5 behaviors practitioner. And we're going to be drawing from the experience of these 2 lovely women when they talk about what their experiences have been in teams, both in corporate, outside of corporate, in many spheres of their lives. And of course, you have me, Vicky Karuga, who will be also participating in this conversation as an emotional intelligence master trainer, as well as a 5B practitioner. And I'm also the managing director of Profiles International, the company I just introduced to you. And together, we hope that at the end of this session, you can be able to say that you spent your time well and you're now more aware in what it means to develop a cohesive team. Perhaps as we go along, you can put on the chat, what would be your expectations today? When you came to this webinar, what were you thinking about? What would be a key takeaway for you for the next 90 or so minutes. I think now there are about 60, but what would that be? Mary, what would be a good objective for you today?
For me, if we really get a lot of people, particularly those who manage teams or work in teams, to understand the power of understanding each other, our emotions, our personalities, and being able to get along, the results are phenomenal. And life changes because it's that more enjoyable because you're with these people almost 24/7, you know, because the other 8 hours you're sleeping. So majority of working day, we're working with these teammates day in and day out, but sometimes going away on trips. So for me, if we could just get people saying, I want my team to get this, I want to train them so that we're a highly effective team, we'll have done our job. Even if we just get one person saying, come and train my team so that we do this, and they have to be there in the middle of it. You can't say, I'm sending the team, me, the leader is staying home, because sometimes people do that. Let my team be trained. I'm not trained. This is the leader, is the number one team member. I think that would be great for me.
Thank you. And what about you, Catherine?
I think for me, if we can understand what really does a team mean. You know, a lot of times we say, oh, we're in the finance, we all work in the finance department, so we are a team. Or we all work in the HR department, so we are a team. So what really is a team? So when we're talking about cohesive teams, what does that mean? Is that a team really? Those people working in the same department reporting to the same supervisor, are they really a team, or is it broader than that? Because once we unpack that, we are actually able to then understand, so why do we need to work better with everybody else who we deliver together?
Great, thank you. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Mary. And so we will embark on that journey. I'm still waiting for your feedback. What would be your expectations today? Just put that on the chat. Should you have any questions during the session today, please put those on the chat as well. We will have complete Q&A sessions immediately after the discussion that we're going to have. If you really have a burning question, put up your hand and we shall consider calling you. But since we are quite a bunch of people, do leave your mics muted so that we can have a great experience for everyone who's on board. If you have a problem, there's a team on board. You just have to chat and text Profiles International and someone will get right to you. So without further ado, I would like to set the agenda for this particular session. And what we really want to do is to give you an introduction into the 5 behaviors of a cohesive team. And then we will talk a little about the DISC model, because we believe that every single person shows up to a team different. And this can be affected from their backgrounds, what they hold dear, what their values are, what their belief systems are, but even to other things that we can measure, such as your behavioral preferences, or what we sometimes like to call your personality. And so with the DISC model being added to the 5 behaviors of a cohesive team, it helps us understand more objectively how we're bringing ourselves to a team. And then, of course, we'll give you a few tips on what the 5 behaviors best practices would be in terms of building a cohesive team. So I'm going to allow you to ask you to watch this short video that just shows how the animal kingdom sometimes is able to carry out teamwork to defend itself. Oh, I think the video has refused. Let me see if I have it somewhere else. Give me a minute, and I think there we go.
It's smarter to
Now, that was the advert for our travel group, talking about how people can take advantage of traveling in groups, but we think it's actually a very good indicator, or rather a good representation of teamwork. The very fact that we can get to not only take care of ourselves, but take care of our colleagues, take care of each other. And so I will continue with the presentation and ask you to put on the chat, what do you need to run a successful business? What do you need to run a successful business? What do you need? Mary, what do you need to run a successful business? Catherine, what do you need to run a successful business?
You're asking, all through different corporate lives, I would have said money, I would have said vision, I would have said, an idea, something that makes money. But at the end of the day, I've really realized it's about people. If you don't have the people, whatever it is you run is not worth it. So that's me. Catherine, over to you.
What do you need?
I agree with you that, much as we need all these things, we could have, all the money, we could have all the technology, we could have all those things. But without the people, then how are those things going to run?
Yes, so you could have all the technology. I see some people on the chat saying you need resources, you need people, you need financial, you need technology. And then Rebecca says a team that gets your vision. There's Brian who says management skills and an extensive network. Martha says people. Emmanuel says capital. Chris says motivated people. Miriam says reliable human resource. Modoni says resilience. And then we have Wepusu saying a united team. We have Lokosi saying employment, strategic alignment, team cohesion, and excellent leadership. Juliana says a proactive team. Habil says strategic. So we have quite a few things, and they're all listed here, as you can see. You need a product or a service. What are you doing? You need a solid and sound strategy. But at the end of the day, all these things need someone or some place to make it happen. And so Patrick Lencioni talked about this particular saying, and he said, it's not finance, it's not strategy, neither is it technology. It's teamwork that remains the ultimate competitive advantage because it's so powerful and also it is so rare. And creating cohesive teams, as you will find out today, is both difficult and simple. Difficult because it really speaks to us as humans and sometimes to some areas that we do not want to think about as being important when it comes to teams, just like you will know shortly. And then simple because it's not really hard, the things that we're talking about. I think Catherine shared today and she said sometimes it's just everyday wisdom that we seem to have forgotten. And so when we talk about the 5 behaviors of a cohesive team, we're really talking about something that was coined by this book that talked about the 5 dysfunctions of a team, which was written by Patrick Lencioni. And if you haven't read it yet, I really do encourage you. He has quite a few. This was the beginning, the 5 behaviors of a dysfunction, the 5 dysfunctions of a cohesive team. I believe he also has The Advantage. He has several books he's written around just culture and teams in themselves. And it's a simple read. It will not take your toll on you, but the concepts are really powerful. And then we also talk about everything this because we believe that we must understand how each and every single person brings themselves to the team. And it's also part of understanding people without what we call judgment. And so this is the way we prefer to think. This is the way we prefer to do things. And other people also have the ways that they prefer to do things. So I want you to take a snapshot of this particular slide, because we're going to ask you to sit for a moment and just see which of these 4 letters represents your preferred style of communicating, of doing your work, what you prioritize or what you focus on. So I'll start with the dominance. If your communication, you prefer direct communication, You prefer to be firm with most decisions. People have used the word strong-willed to describe you, and sometimes forceful. And some other words that may go into that territory include blunt and insensitive, yeah, and competitive, and always winning. The song, all I do is win, win, win. And results-oriented is more your focus. Then you're most likely in the dominant quadrant, which is represented there in the color green, and it is represented by the letter D. If you're more, again, very outgoing, very enthusiastic, people have used words to describe you like the energy. You have so much energy and you're positive. In fact, you might say things like negative people drain you because you're more positive, high-spirited, most likely the life of a party, you high-five a lot, you don't mind encouraging people to be the very best that they can. You might be called once in a while that you have charisma and inspiration. You might also be called that, sometimes you dwell too much on the bigger picture and forget about the details that are required to have anything finally be finished. So that is most likely influence describing you there. So you can put yourselves as the red quadrant or the letter I. And if you're more the steady type, even-tempered, the word diplomatic has been used to describe you. You consider issues from all perspectives. You're slow to anger. You're patient. You would rather support people and make sure that things are working, and you're very tactful with their words. Sometimes people might say that you will sit on the fence because they're not sure where you are. Are you on red? Are you on green? Are you hot? But the thing is, diplomacy is very important to you, and conflict is not something that's natural to you. Then we might find you in the steadiness style. And then last but not least, if you find that you are almost always redlining the narrative that's been written for you, you want to dot the I's and you want to cross the T's. Everything has to be precise. We live at 8 and not 8:05. And you find yourself also very private. Things like detail-oriented, words like detail-oriented have been used to describe you quite often. Don't take a decision without giving so and so all the facts, and you take your time when you're making a decision because all the details are important, and you're systematic and structured. Then perhaps the letter C is what will describe your temperament. Now, of course, this is not a conclusive way of deciding what your style is, but it's a beginning. And so we encourage you to really take a well-validated personality instrument to really find out more about your personality. Now, this will be important because when we're talking about the 5 behaviors, we'll also be sharing how each brings itself to each of the 5 behaviors. And what 5 behaviors are we talking about? Now, Patrick Lencioni talked about the 5 dysfunctions of a team. And the foundational dysfunction of a team was the absence of trust. When teams don't trust each other, I know we go for team building, we do the trust falls, we do very many exercises around trust, but the trust here that we talk about takes some time to build, because we say trust is the foundation of any relationship, really, not just teams. So you find that when there is the absence of trust, then people will not engage in conflict. So there's a fear of conflict. And in a short while, you'll see why conflict is so important in a team. When there's fear of conflict, then you lack clarity of ideas, you lack buy-in. And so there's a general lack of commitment. And this is where, when an idea fails, you'll find some group of people saying, I would have told them if they'd have asked me, or that was the idea, they finished, they've done it. And so there is no commitment to follow through to the end. When there's a lack of commitment, then there's avoidance of accountability. I don't want to call you out on things that you're not doing, because I also don't want to be called out on things that I might be doing, because after all, we are chasing my things, my goals, what I want to do. And when we have all 4, then we are likely to not pay attention to results. And yes, sometimes teams will say, when it comes to results, when they do the assessment, we focus on results. But when you dig deeper and find out what kind of results are they talking about, you find mostly it's about my results, my department's results, my KPIs, those results that will result in a certain promotion somewhere. So now is to think about, then how do we then flip this triangle and now start talking about now the 5 behaviors of a cohesive team. And it all starts with trust as a foundational behavior. Mary, what is trust to you? And maybe I'll ask the team on the call, what is trust to you? What has been trust to you? Feel free to put anything. We would like to see what your perspective on trust is.
You know, I'm a D personality, though I've refused mine. I want to do the extensive test that you've said that people really do an intense, because I think I'm a bit of an influencer, so I could be DI, the influencer. So I think trust to me is when I can rely 100% on someone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can go to sleep knowing it's gonna be done, whatever it is. But then sometimes we D's very hard to, we find it very hard to trust because we like to control. So that for me is sometimes some of my problems. I want to make sure I know everything and the detail and when and the template, and I check 20 times. So sometimes I can micromanage, which is not good for teams. Catherine, over to you. What about you?
I think for me, trust, the big thing that comes to me is psychological safety. You know, that I know I'm in an environment where, you know, I wouldn't have people stabbing me in the back. There's no bullying in that environment. There's no, so for me, it's around psychological safety. When there's that, if you're a person who I can talk to and you won't be telling me, I know what kind of ideas are those, you know, or, you know, now things that put you down or things that make you wonder, hey, should I have shared that with Vicky? Am I sure that was? So somebody who makes it comfortable for you to talk to them, to share things with them, and in a work environment, an environment where you can actually be able to show up and not be afraid of that, then there is a trust environment.
Okay. So I can also see there's several things coming from the chat. I'm just reading from the chat on my right, and I'm seeing trust is safety from Christine. Chris says, trust means I believe in you. And then Brian says, trust, Brian, it's disappeared. Brian says, reliability and walking the talk. And then Emmanuel says, feeling of being free to say anything or trying things out with respect at work. Then we have, it keeps going up. Job saying, trust is I can rely on you, truthfulness. Lokosi says, trust is reliability, delivery, dependability. Caroline says safety. Gladys says mutual respect. And then we have a definition of vertical and horizontal trust from Chris. And then last but not least, we have Doreen who says, a place I am free to be me and that those around me have my back. And Joseph says, I've just seen this, giving people the freedom to lead, succeed, and deliver great outcomes. So for us, for when we define trust in a team, and there's been such great conversation on the chat about what trust is. Sometimes we might confuse being able to predict, and this is something that Mary has said. I mean, the way that she looks at work, she wants to be able to predict that Catherine is going to deliver on date 2 at 7:01 a.m. in the morning. Mary, am I right or am I right?
Yes.
Possibly come with a green outfit for that delivery. So sometimes it might end up being a bit more about predictive. The same way I use this example and say, when you stop at a red light, you know that other people are going to stop as well. But if the light turns green, it's predictive trust that the other light has turned what's it called? Red, and you can go. But then a matatu comes, and just, you know, a matatu in Kenya is one of those cars, public vans, and it just goes off the red light. And in teams, that happens a lot. People drop the ball all the time. And so we like to go a bit deeper about trust and say, perhaps it's also about what we call vulnerability-based trust. Catherine, what would you say?
Absolutely true, because when there's no vulnerability in the trust, then I'm not able to be open, because vulnerability means I can actually be open And I know that I will not be judged. I know that I will not have, a hammer hitting me. So there is vulnerability where I'm not, we like to say you fake it, where you're just showing up in a certain way so that people perceive you in a certain way. So vulnerability-based trust is where I show up as myself. I don't have to package myself.
And which we call poise, I'm packaging myself for you. And so I am not willing to admit failure because that will portray me in a certain light. So in the absence of trust, we feel judged and we also judge. So we judge failure. And someone has put it on the chat, trust is allowing your team to fail and take learnings, which can help propel them to greater heights. When we have vulnerability-based trust, then people feel valued and they value others, and they can be completely open with one another, and those filters start disappearing. And I'm sure you've seen this. There are such pockets of trust, and we call them silos, where some people in a certain place and another place, they seem to have this kind of thing going, but the two of them can't mix together. But that trust is a bit hard, especially to us as people. And I'm sure there are people on this call wondering, why do we have to be so vulnerable? Mary, maybe you can give us your take on this vulnerability-based trust.
My style is D. And I think, as a D style, I love, you can see there projects strength and mental toughness. We're fairly guarded, and I'm fairly guarded about letting others see what I am, because I believe I'm Mrs. Atlas. I can sort out everything. And I guess, because I do want to control and I feel insecure, I need to project strength. I always say I'm the ATM, so, of the family. So sometimes it's really difficult. Catherine talked about a mask. Mary's successful, Mary's this, Mary's that, but I'm not. I get broke sometimes, I cry sometimes, I'm depressed sometimes. How am I going to be vulnerable to these people? And particularly if I'm the boss. So it is difficult, but I'm starting to understand that actually vulnerability, as Brené says, is a point of connection. That for me is what has been so interesting, that when you're vulnerable, actually people say, oh, she's normal, you're like me. Oh, we connect, and then they are vulnerable back and we connect. So I find it challenging, but also interesting.
What about you, Catherine? Because I know you're coming from vulnerability-based trust from a completely different place.
Yes, so I'm coming at it from a place of my style is an SC. So private, emotional control. So people may not read, may not read you. Like Mary says, you're likely to read the emotion on her face. What she's feeling may just come through. I'm the complete opposite. You may hardly see it. And because of that, then I may not open up as easily. So it becomes something that is, you need to create that awareness and begin to realize, yes, this vulnerability is important if I'm to build trust. Because if I'm this guarded, if I continue to be this private, maintain this very strong emotional control, then we will all continue to, play around, move around, but nobody will be open and vulnerable to either admit mistake, admit when things are going wrong, because everybody is just being private and keeping things to themselves.
Yes.
Absolutely. Nobody says when things are going wrong, everybody's quiet. Absolutely. Then it explodes.
Yeah, two people, they both know the value of vulnerability and all coming from it in different angles. And I'm wondering, you on the call, how are you viewing vulnerability-based trust? It's not a simple thing, and what would be your reaction to it? I guess for mine, it's a bit more like Mary. It's about maintaining control, and so letting people in to that level of vulnerability might be a bit too much as I call it. But yet I know that vulnerability-based trust is what really creates that safe space for teams. So one of the ways that I can give as a tip that I have used as you share your views on the chat and how you view vulnerability-based trust, one of the things that I have used personally is to have regular informal time with my team. So nothing about work. It could be just a hike, or it could be a place where we're just brainstorming and there's nothing task related, because I'm very task related and I can hide behind a lot of tasks. So creating a space where we share more often than not, and you get to see people opening up slowly by slowly. It doesn't happen overnight, but if you keep putting in the work, making sure that every month you have an informal session with your teams, you'll find that slowly by slowly, you also open up to them. Because sometimes as leaders, we say, they're not opening up to me, but it works both ways. You need to open up to them, and they also need to open up to you. So you'll find yourself beginning to find and explore, because you also have to go the wrong direction and come back and say, hey, that place is not very nice. So explore and find that comfort zone that is as close to vulnerability-based trust as we can go. And please tell me what your thoughts are on vulnerability-based trust. What insights are you getting as I hand it to conflict? What is conflict to you?
I think, Vicky, just as I was thinking about that last point, that if there's really trust and then people start actually giving their own ideas and they're not judged, you know what you said earlier about trust, that people are able to have the confidence that what I say will be taken in the same light as everybody else. And, my intentions are good. I think that thing of saying the intentions of everybody are good, which is very difficult, but particularly in toxic environment and organizations, where they say the people are our key assets, but you never see them anyway in the P&L, they're key assets. So, that thing of saying that I will assume everybody has a good intention, that is hard. And yet it is the beginning. That I find interesting.
Thank you. So I will assume, taking that decision, I will assume that everybody has a good intention. And that's the way I'm going into a conversation and into a room. Thank you. And Catherine, for you?
I think for me, around, and moving on a bit into conflict a little bit, is that trust. As we build that trust, it enables me to know, Vicky, when she comes and gives a viewpoint that is divergent, from mine, there's trust that's been built. When Vicky challenges me, so there's a lot of things that then comes with trust. I actually remember, reading a story about this football coach. He's known to be among the hardest coaches on his team, but he gives them such hard feedback. But because they trust him as a person and they know that he has the best intentions for them, it doesn't matter how hard the feedback, they take it in. And sometimes he doesn't even give it very well, but they trust him. And because of that, he's been able to build one of the best teams in the NBA. So sometimes that's what trust is able to do. And it helps us then be able to lean into this conflict very easily. So allow me to just slowly get into conflict, Vicky. And maybe
go ahead. Yes.
And it's just maybe here to ask for a lot of us, especially like me, who is an SC, conflict is one of those things that we avoid. We just see it coming and we, the way you step aside to let it pass. So I don't know, for you who are, for all of you who are on the call, what images come to you when you think on conflict? Is it positive? Is it negative? Is it that thing you're thinking, oh gosh, Mary likes drama. I do not want, anytime you just like conflict prone. What comes to mind when you hear the word conflict? So I can see some words here. Conflict is vulnerability. Why? Because one is opening up to possibility of shame, rejection, abuse. Conflict is being able to acknowledge different opinions and being challenged with open minds. And I think Christine will talk a little bit about, the possibility of shame, rejection, abuse. And I think that's why we talked about trust, in the first place. Conflict would mean there is something that needs to be resolved. Opposition, divergent views. Doreen, I'm conflict averse. Yeah, me and you are in the same WhatsApp group. It's very uncomfortable. What else comes to mind when you hear the word conflict? Conflict helps in innovation. Absolutely. Yeah. What else? What other things come to mind? It's an opportunity to reestablish boundaries and it's uncomfortable. So Mary, you're D and you told us, you're a strong D. How does conflict come up for you?
it's interesting. I seem to have some kind of two personalities. When it's work related, I really am okay, with conflict, because I see it, as about open debate of ideas. And I think, to me, conflict is where creativity and innovation lies. And particularly as an emotional intelligence practitioner, I do know that everybody's debate, bring your ideas here. And through my life, particularly when I took over National Oil and I was asked to turn it around, and we did. Now, of course, another story, but getting the right team and then having everybody feed in. We didn't have an act of parliament. We didn't have a mandate. We didn't know what we were supposed to do. What bank was saying, close it down. So for me, I love that constructive debate about ideas. But when it comes to my personal life, I take off, I really delete. So it's funny that I'm not able to take productive, what you're calling that conflict, into personal life. So I think is it those people who have got two personalities, what are they called?
Splits.
There's a thing for personality, schizophrenic or something. So yeah, that to me is how I take it.
Thanks, Mary. But I think, and for purposes of this discussion, as we talk about the 5 behaviors, conflict in this instance, we are talking about ideological conflict, where we can be able to engage in passionate and filtered debate, but it's around issues that are of importance to the team. So it's not about personality, it's not interpersonal, it's not about, we are locking heads with each other. It is really about issues to do with the team and what we're working towards. It's that we can actually be able to speak up and say what we think. That is what, in this context, conflict means. And so, Vicky, we could go to the next slide.
Yeah, I'm just trying to point out some of the things that guys have shared on the chat, talking about conflict as an opportunity to reestablish boundaries, and it is uncomfortable. In fact, it's called conflict because it has to be, to some level, to some degree, uncomfortable, an opportunity to clarify issues. Marsha says it's the disarray, it's discomfort, it's difference of opinions, part of team formation, which is storming. Yeah, I think we know the storming, norming. Then we have Emmanuel says, have a common understanding. And Chris says, if managed well, it leads to growth, to different perspectives, but can also be destructive if not well managed. An opportunity to learn each other, and then can also reveal a higher level of awareness or insight.
Yeah, thank you for that, Vicky. And, I like this diagram and the way the diagram is. The trust bar is bigger than the conflict bar, because you need trust for conflict to be productive. If there's no trust, it's very difficult for conflict to be productive. And what we see in uncohesive teams is that, we will see, less contribution, people keep thoughts to themselves. These are the behaviors we see where people are not comfortable with conflict. We will see people judge each other, in terms of, if Vicky disagrees with something I say, I won't take it that she disagreed with the issue. I actually look at it as if it is me she has something against, so then the team is not able to make very good decisions. But where teams are cohesive, we're able to see constructive debates on ideas. There's no fear or defensiveness, because people are comfortable to put up their ideas out there, to put their views, to actually challenge ideas that have been put forth and engage in that debate of why I see it this way, and be willing to listen to also other people's points of view. And once trust has been established, what then happens is the relationship can withstand tension. So this tension of I disagree, we have divergent views, or maybe it's something that I need to challenge you on. We will see it when we come to, maybe it's the work that you've done that I need to actually give you feedback on. We actually find that this conflict, then we're able to engage with it constructively. So that's what conflict does. I don't know, Vicky, for you, you said you're predominantly a D, but would be nice to hear, how does conflict show up for you, even within your team?
Interesting, because I find that because I conflict at work or conflict around ideas has not been a very big problem, but the way that I project myself naturally can be a bit firm. and can be a bit domineering. And that's something I have learned so I'm wondering, why are people not talking back at me? But it's because it's the way that I've spoken to them. Someone said here, if it's not handled well, then it doesn't work. So learning that even as I'm conflicting, there are certain ways that I will come across that will not allow others to conflict back. And if the trust has been established as it was at some point, guys are like, but when you talk, you just keep talking and talking. And sometimes we don't know when to tell you that you need to stop. But now that the avenue has been put for people to give you feedback when you stop talking, you're like, Allah. So now I've been the reason why people have not been conflicting around ideas. So I think it's important as well, understanding your style and knowing how it's coming across in conflict. I mean, your intention is that you're conflicting around ideas, but then you have the S and the C, they're like, hey, this person is coming a bit too boldly. And then being available to get that feedback from people, I think is important. Mary, what do you think?
No, I fully agree. In fact, I'll keep quiet in shame. But luckily, because of being an emotional intelligence practitioner and a coach, honestly, I found myself changing. And even my children, my adult children tell me you're changing. You're more. Though, was it last week, my daughter told me, Mom, we can't say what we want to think, that there's no psychological safety. So I knew, wow, it's been working, because we made this relocation move and I just did everything and I'm ordering, consultation was minimum. And it is true, the Ds, we tend to think that, everybody will agree with us. And if you don't talk then and quickly and loudly, and one of the tips I remember from the Female Future program is what we call meta communication, going around to every single person and I say, what part did you take in a discussion? Do you agree with it? Did you contribute? Making sure there's a reflection moment for everybody and having them speak. A lot comes out to people who are very quiet but had something to say, but perhaps there was no window for them.
I like that. The tip for meta. Meta, what did you call it? Meta?
We call it meta communication, and now people are calling it a meta moment, but it's actually called meta communication. Yeah.
And Mary, you bring out something that's very important, that understanding your style then helps you know how you respond. So if I am, for me, who is an SC, you will find, you don't want very heated debates. So you may tend to withdraw and actually not speak up. So
even shut down sometimes. Yeah, you guys really shut down, become silent. Yeah.
Absolutely. So being aware of that then helps you in that meeting or in that session be able to then, catch yourself and say, I need to actually say it and I need to speak up. And you begin to practice it. Like Mary said, it's practice. It's like a muscle you build. I am aware that this is the way I would typically or naturally respond. So how do I stretch this so that I respond differently? So understanding your style then just helps you be able to respond differently. And one of the things that I found very useful, especially in mastering conflict within a team, is like if we're having a meeting and we're brainstorming on an idea or discussing something, one is being able to lay ground rules from the beginning. It could be a team charter or a team agreement where you just agree. All ideas are valid, all suggestions are valid, no personal attacks, no, there is nothing like, hey, Vicky, now what kind of idea is that we respect each other, so you lay that very clearly from the beginning, and then you give everybody an opportunity to speak. Actually, in one instance, Brené Brown gives an example where she says, she found people in her team who are not talking, and she would come in and say, okay, let's all write it on a post-it. And everybody would write their ideas on a post-it. But over time, people then gained the confidence to move from writing it to a post-it to actually say it, because they then realized, even when I write it on a post-it and it's very different, nobody attacked me. So it begins then build that trust, and people then begin to feel comfortable with conflict. So as a leader, you then have that responsibility of making sure you create that safety for people to be able to feel comfortable enough to then speak up.
I like that, of starting small. That post-it is starting small. And I remember somewhere they did teach us, start small, always start small. Vicky, there's a very interesting question for you. You might want to give a quick rebuttal or reply from Chris Wakube, who says, I believe I'm an I, but there is a perception that D and C are the better managers, bracket more efficient than S and I. Is this true?
It's just a perception. It is not true. Every single person brings their own management style to the space. Every single person will interact with you different, and we all have our strengths. We all have our challenges, and the key is to be so self-aware and aware of others that you're able to create that collaboration. Okay, so we've digressed, but we can move right back. What I like about as well as what you said about starting small is you can also check and gauge where your team is in terms of its ability to conflict. And then that will also tell you with how much they're willing to take, and you can build that over time. So conflict won't happen immediately, but if you intentionally want it to start, you will be reaping the benefits of a vibrant team, less boring meetings, because teams that don't conflict, it's only yes, yes, have you done this? Yes, have you done this? No, there's no joy in the meetings, and you'll be bringing a lot of joy into your meetings. I will go over to you. Yes.
Even board meetings where everybody agrees with each other, but it's just another day.
Yes, when everyone agrees with you. Mary, what about you and commitment? I know you like this one.
I like commitment. What rings in your mind when you hear commitment? Guys, put for me in the chat line, 1, 2, go. Give me one word. What rings in your mind when you hear commitment? What is commitment? Here we're talking about the workplace, but it could be anything. Family commitment, it could be marriage commitment. What is the word? Because it's very big in partnerships, commitment. Dedication, thank you, Jamrek. Come on, guys, give me dedication, friendship, commitment. Commitment, we commit.
Accountability.
Yeah, accountability, integrity, until death do us part, yes, but what is it that we're doing is commitment.
We're committing, going the distance.
Going the distance, availability, paying the price. Thank you, guys. Let me
paying
say,
the price.
Yeah, what about, for me, it's really, Vicky, what would commitment be for you? Because
I think I'm seeing such good words here: against all odds, being present, a promise, devotion. Some of them are heavy, but I like them. Paying the price.
Yes. So, I mean, you guys have got it. Commitment is all of this, but let's actually now drill it down and say, what is it in this context of a team, a really cohesive team? What are we talking about? Next slide, please. What we're talking about is that there's clarity. There's clarity around decisions, because yes, we're committed, but about what? Are we going to Mombasa, or are we going to Kisumu? Or are we going to stop some people at Voi? So what is the clarity that we're clear on the overall direction and the priorities? Because you can imagine a team doesn't have clarity. Some people will get to Adriva and Semita Shukapa, and the task is not finished. And then that clarity also is buy-in. What are the teams now committed and they have total buy-in? If they did not agree with that discussion, with that, they disagreed with the solution. Because you see, in the first place, you had the conflict. Everybody had their different ideas. I keep on saying, people from Kericho, it rains every day. They can't even imagine people from Massabit or from, what's that, Maghreb Desert, how rain. So everybody's got a very different perspective and judgment of how life should be. Things should be done this way. So everybody comes with different ideas from their identity way, the way they grew up, the way they were taught, their degrees, their commitment, their practices, all those values and belief system, you bring them and you make a decision. So you think your decision is the best, but there are very many different people with different perspectives. And that is the beauty, that everybody brings a different dimension. Once that is agreed and it's not your decision that was agreed, are you going to now have a buy-in and say, it's a group decision because I trust the group, as Vicky said? We have resolved and had all the open conflict about ideas, then let's agree. And I back in because I trust my team that this is the best solution. Because sometimes some people think it's only my ideas that can work. Those are not good team members. You commit and say, even if we're told it didn't work, I'll say, it was not my idea, it was Catherine's. In fact, I had originally even thought, really, you buy in 100% and you fight for it, and you don't even remember whose idea that was. Now, there are two big things. There are two big things that actually brings down, they're the two greatest causes of lack of commitment. I wonder if in the chat you could tell me what are the two biggest reasons for lack of commitment. What have you found? I'm sure all of you work in teams. Either you manage a team, you also belong to the top team, you belong to another team. What do you think are the two biggest things, the two biggest causes of lack of commitment? What are the deal breakers? What are the killers of commitment?
You have lack of ownership. There's lack of ownership from Virongo, I think. Lack of clear direction, that is from Joseph. And then we have Claire as a leader. I don't know what that meant. Oh, lack of a leader, I imagine. Low salary, Chris, I think is playing the devil's advocate.
Yeah. If there's no follow-up on agreed, issues, somebody knows this course, wonderful. Where there's no trust, absolutely bad attitude. Let me tell you, actually, the two causes of lack of commitment, research has shown, one is a desire for consensus. Kenyans, we like to agree with each other. Yes, I agree. Sometimes, Martin Luther says, that, a lack of, peace is not simply a lack of consensus. So any of those, I'll find that thing. So really, just because there's a lack of consensus, there's a desire for consensus doesn't mean there's peace. Because you're keeping peace in your heart. And then the other one is a need for certainty. I want to be sure it will work. So now some people are not pulled along because they say, I don't see how it will work. I need to be pushed through. So you're not even risking and seeing a vision. And you can see here when people put their heart in it, cohesive teams commit to the team goals versus their own goal. And that's why I said, they don't say my idea was, they totally own the new goal, and they've forgotten even who suggested, and they didn't. Non-cohesive teams, as some of you have said here, I can see somebody talking about the poison of cynicism, disruption.
Hallelujah, hallelujah.
There's my team and there's a team goal. And then you have these silos that happen around. And it's so interesting. A lot of what you have said here in the chat is behind low commitment. But the real causes, and think about it for your team, when everybody desires so much for consensus, even when you know it's not true, but let's just all agree for peace so we can leave at 5 o'clock, or we can for my holiday. And when you need certainty, those two are killers. And I think done. Let's move on. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, but I like to point out something you like to say about most things that we take on, most endeavors. Even a simple thing as moving a table from room A to room B. Let's just take where I am. I want to move this table from there. And we commit that we're going to move the table that is sitting here to the next room in this office. Even that will not go according to plan. So that's the other thing about certainty. We tend to have this way that things are going to happen, but more often than not, the goals we have, and especially if they're related to business, they're related to any venture that we're doing as a team, there is no straight route. So without everyone, as someone put here, I mean, going into it for the long haul, this thing will work. However it has to work, it is going to work. Yeah? Yes. Committing to this thing will work. Whether we are going to take the table first out of the balcony and then we put it through the window and then someone says no, that won't work, and then putting it out of there's never a straight line in anything, no matter how small or big. And that's why commitment becomes putting your heart into it until it is done.
And you know, when you put your heart into it, sorry about that, Catherine, I break you a little bit because I was going to come to you, means you're willing to change. Is that what you're saying? It can be done another way. And that's where a lot of, vision and things happen that actually, most people say, even for businesses, that I started doing this, I thought is what the customer wanted, but the customers told me they wanted something else. And actually the product moved and morphed and became a new product. Catherine, I saw you smiling. You must have some examples about commitment.
No, I really think, in terms of lack of commitment, I think some of the things that we see, even things like you're not committing because you're afraid we're going to fail. So those, you know, you want to sit on the fence because you're afraid, this thing could go bust. I don't want to get with both my feet inside. Let me sit here and then I'll be there saying, but did I say? And I think it's just the build-up. I mean, for me, one of the things I really love about this model is the build-up, because if I engage in the conflict where I voice my ideas, then I listen to Vicky's ideas and I listen to Mary's ideas, and I'm able to take it in to then see why it doesn't have to be mine. Somebody else could have a better one, actually, yes. And commitment doesn't mean I 100% agree, but I'm willing to take the risk and say, I can try. Let's see. You know, let's just get on the boat and see, but I am in it 100%. I am not sitting on the fence. So I think for me, that's what, you know, commitment really means for me. And once you get people in and they are committed, then you're actually able to see people applying themselves fully.
And we've seen it, you know, I mean, I'm always talking about this hotel, sorry to talk about it. What's it called? Fairview Hotel. I mean, those people are committed. They're like shareholders. They have the best customer service. I don't know what they give them to eat in Nairobi, for those of you outside, but they truly, truly are committed. They'll carry your things. It doesn't matter if it's a guard, is a receptionist, they really true this. So let's move to the commitment and DISC personalities and see how do they react to that. Vicky, you're a DI.
Yeah,
what
so
what's your response to commitment? Or maybe they could be somebody of your team we've observed who's a different style and how they work with commitment versus you. And you maybe give those two examples.
Yeah, and I'm really hoping how sometimes, you know, when we look at these different preferences that we bring towards all these topics, we're beginning to see that it's not the work, it's actually the people, and how we really have to take, to reserve the best of intentions for everyone. Because I mean, if my natural inclination is to be skeptical around this clarity and buy-in, then it's just that, it's a natural inclination. And so, you know, possibly that I'm presenting to, when I'm talking to someone like Catherine, I'm more dealing with the facts of the case. And if I'm moving at it more from the big picture level, she'll be like, Vicky, surely, why are you selling us water? Why are we going to the Red Sea? And you're thinking that Moses is available for us to have a path through it. So it's about also understanding that we're all bringing ourselves different. The D's and the C's are skeptical, obviously, for obvious reasons. And they might have a challenge thinking that there could be another way. And of course, the more we grow, the more we mature, the more we listen, the more we understand that sometimes we will be overruled. But checking our egos and checking our passive aggressiveness, those pocket vetoes we like doing, you just say, okay, then you put your hands in the pocket and then you walk around looking at people like, what are they going to do without me? After all, the idea, and we see that sometimes with kids. I don't know what you have to say.
But let me ask you something before I go to Catherine. I know that I styles have a strong need to know that their thoughts and feelings have been heard. That's very important to an I. Yes, you know, the influencers, they want to know, you've heard me, you know my thoughts, you know my feelings.
We like being recognized. We like that social recognition. And don't recognize me in private. I don't like it either.
Not in private.
Not in private. It has to be in public. Yes.
In public where everybody can see someone. So now you see here, it's saying eyes will vocalize object and align with ease to the group show, but may hold a grudge if alienated or hurt. So I see that actually of that idea of wanting to be recognized and being heard. So I guess somebody who had an eye like you in their team, just you would advise them what to do with you.
To ensure that you're validating and telling us congratulations. I know it's a lot of work, but that's what has to be done. The eyes in my team, you have to, you know, we always actually, well done, you. I mean, or that's a brilliant idea, but I think, so there's ways of talking to different styles. The hammer will not kill the same mosquito, as we say. That is one tip I will give. But because they also like talking, you must also, in self-awareness, bring them to the understanding that they can also shut down others, and therefore bring again that lack of conflict, which is really what brings commitment. If I don't feel heard, I will not want to commit.
Okay. Catherine, I know the S style. You're really often adept at listening to people and showing empathy. And as you said earlier about yourself, very self-controlled and quite friendly. Now, when you're feeling this decision, I'm not committed, how do you handle that? Because it says here, you can go with group decision even when you don't prefer it. How do you manage all that?
And what you say is very true, Mary. The S, you want everybody to be on board. You want to know, do you agree? What did you think? What was your opinion? You actually want to hear other people, hear what they thought. You want to bring them on board, and then because I'm an SC, then there's the C part of where you still want the fact, but you still want everybody on board. So, and I think it's what we've been saying all along. It's that awareness that, I could overly be trying to get everybody, hear everybody, and I could lean a lot towards consensus.
Yeah.
It's very easy for the SC to lead towards consensus more than towards commitment, because I just want peace. I want everybody to, be in agreement, and then let's move forward. So being aware of that, and then now sometimes knowing that sometimes we need to move forward, one, without full information, but also having communicated, so long as there's clarity and trying to get people to buy in as opposed to trying to get the consensus of everybody in the team. So when people understand why the decision was taken to go to Mombasa, not Kisumu, and it's clearly communicated and articulated, then you need to be able to, we all get onto that bus and start going in that direction. So it's that understanding of yourself and knowing, where am I likely to analyze, paralyze, or just be here waiting until Mary says yes, we can't go. So we are there 3 weeks waiting for Mary to say yes.
Okay, and what about those who are here listening both on this webinar and on Zoom as well as Facebook, who are saying, oh my goodness, I've seen somebody in my team who's a typical S. How would you, maybe in half a minute, just tell us, how do you pull the S out into the commitment? What would you suggest, a tip or two that works?
I think for them, it's also just the thing of everybody has been heard, allowing people, and I think it's that same build-up that, their opinion was taken into account. So they want to feel everybody was heard. So hear all the decisions before you can still take the decision. As a leader, you will still need to take the decision, but people need to feel heard and that their contribution was taken into account.
As I wind this, Vicky, and I'm giving over to you, I know we don't have any of us in the C style, but the C's, they're the ones who tell you page 46, paragraph 3, words 107. They really place great value on, accurate, on details. There's naturally skepticism. What is one way to bring them out into the commitment?
We do have a C. We have Catherine, who's a C. Yeah.
Oh yes, she's an SC. Yes, so she was talking on both. Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll let it over to you.
Okay, so we're going to the fourth part of it about accountability, and I think that's you, Catherine.
Thank you, Vicky. I think we've talked, it's come very well. So now we are committed. So, but then what does then accountability mean? If we look at it that we are then moving to that next level, what to us does accountability mean in this context? And you could also feel free to broaden it a little bit, but what does accountability mean for us? What kind of images does it conjure up?
Yeah, please feel free to put on the chat as well. What does accountability mean?
What is accountability? Answerable to? What else does accountability mean to us? Responsibility.
Responsibility.
Back stops with you.
The back stops with you.
Being our word, integrity, ownership. What else?
What does it mean?
Being reliable. We hear, managers telling their people, I expect you to be accountable. I am looking for accountability. What do you mean when you use words like that? What do you want people to be doing? Being reliable? Oh, somebody says I yoke around my neck. Doing the right thing when no one is watching, owning the good, the bad, and the ugly.
There's this thing people say, accountability partner. What are they supposed to really do? Accountability partner.
Pepuso says supportive to the team.
Yeah. So, and all these things are accountability. I mean, because accountability can be very broad. But in this particular context, as we look at the 5 behaviors of a cohesive team, accountability in this case means peer-to-peer accountability. Why peer-to-peer accountability? So we are looking at, again, we come back to, we have committed to this goal and we are going together. We are all on this bus moving together. So then we are jointly accountable. So that is what it's peer-to-peer. So it means I can hold Vicky accountable and say, but Vicky, this is what we committed to. Why are you now facing a different direction? So that's what accountability in this context means. And, as we think about embracing accountability, you could think about a time when you got feedback that was harsh, but it was valuable. Because we're saying it's peer-to-peer accountability. So think of a time when a peer gave you feedback, which was harsh, but it was actually valuable. Or when you were given feedback that was just a little bit too late. That yes, the feedback came, but you're thinking, it's come 2 months later. I needed to hear this much earlier. Or sometimes they actually told you something you want to hear, but the way it was said was so hurtful that you were like, what just happened there? So accountability is really being able to give each other peer-to-peer accountability, hold each other accountable for what we said we would do. If we committed to deliver something by a certain time, that within the team, we can hold each other accountable for that which we committed to be able to do. And, some of the behaviors we see, in cohesive teams where there's accountability, people are able to speak to the subject matter directly. They're able to, directly tell you, but Mary, you were to provide this report by today, because then not having that report is holding up my work. And I can actually be able to give that feedback and give it candidly, but also give it with respect, because we've built trust. We're able to listen with empathy. And sometimes when there is difficulty, we're able to offer solutions. Because then the converse of that is that I will come, Mary will not give the report she was supposed to give. I will go to Vicky and say, Mary is so irresponsible. She can't, we agreed. So when we don't have peer-to-peer accountability, we then are not able to give feedback to each other. We will talk behind each other's back. We will not be able to say, this is what we said we would do. Why aren't we doing what we said we would do? So accountability actually involves a bit of confrontation. And that's why conflict was important, because as you engage in this conflict, there's a little bit of confrontation where I can give you feedback that's difficult and you don't take it negatively, because difficult feedback is not easy to give. And, and sometimes even our personality styles that we talk about, sometimes they influence how we give feedback. So Mary, for a D, how would you typically give feedback? Without the awareness of I need to take this deep breath and then give the feedback. What would be the natural way?
Because of my age, I'm more polite, but I'm still very direct. I'm very open. I'm very honest, and I give it straight as it is. And it's only later I say maybe I may have hurt somebody. So I tend to give direct feedback, and I must say I think also I don't take direct feedback very well. I'm very sensitive. I'm very sensitive. So I'm trying to see if I can walk my talk. But really, even in my board meetings, I've always been known as one of this person, very straight shooter, straightforward, because the way I was brought up, my background, everything. And you see all these things come into your personality. My father was about truth and integrity and saying what is direct. So yeah, that is me.
Yeah. So as we talk about,
It's got me into trouble.
Or it's gotten you into trouble sometimes. So even as we talk about accountability, and sometimes it brings confrontation, we see that even just our own preference in terms of personality influences even the way we give that feedback. Vicky, I know you're a D, so I'll ask you to, I is also very strong for you. So maybe you could tell us, how do you see that showing up?
I think one of the things that I really identify with is when people, saying things you regret. And I know, yeah, some of my team is listening and they're probably saying, as in there comes a time when you get so frustrated, you might tell someone off as opposed to correcting the behavior. And of course, that destroys trust. That means you're starting to work from point zero. But I think it's in never giving up, and it's in never excusing your behavior because you're a certain style, you're from a certain background, you have a certain belief about people. So it's never as easy, and it's not saying that we are saints, but it's just saying that it's that journey you commit to that I think Mary alluded, knowing that the team will deliver the results. And we all need each other in this team. So when sometimes it gets to that level, then understanding that it might work out this way if you don't check out. So that's what I would add to this conversation.
Okay. Sorry, Mary, you're saying something.
No. I was just saying I have 8 minutes to say the next piece. So I will ask the wonderful people online to give us a little more interest. They have been listening with a lot of interest. So if you'll kindly give us a few more minutes, we'll be able to finish. So we're into the results. Thank you, Catherine. I want you to type in for me, everybody listening in, both on Facebook and here where you are, is what type of results do you know, particularly in your organization? What do people call results? There's so many types of results that mean, oh, so-and-so is result-oriented, so-and-so did this. Who is praised for results? What sort of results do people want in your organization? We know they're the formal ones, but there's so many ways different results are appreciated. It will be very interesting to see in the chat what type of results do you know that you see coming up in an organization?
I can see numbers.
Doreen, that's a finance person.
Yes.
Peter, yes. Key performance indicators, KPIs, impactful, targets, outputs, outcomes, yes. Client satisfaction, visible organizational change, excellent. Arrest of bad guys, release of good guys, new laws. Thank you, Irongo. I saw you come in and I said, he's here. Yes, those are the results. Funding, diversification, and member. It's really good to have you here, Irongo. Improvements, so market improvements, step by step, every day, sales targets. Thank you so much for doing that, for talking about that. So I will move very quickly into this slide because it's all this, but it's really to say, one, results refer to collective goals of the team. And the key word here is collective. If we can have the next slide, please. Is collective goals of that. No, okay, just leave it back where it was, sorry. And then the second item is, it's not limited to financial measures, just as you had Irongo and others, or even impact, somebody else, Jerry B said visible organization-wide change. It's also more broadly related to what are the expectations of the organization? What is a culture? What is expected behavior? What is the culture like that we want to have a friendly or whatever, we want to have customer service, we want to have a respectful climate. So they're always more broadly respected to the expectations that are set of the way you work together. Teams are emphasized that they're part of the way we deliver results. And also, of course, should be outcome-based performance. So you've really talked about it and I love it. The other thing I would like to say from my many years of being in corporate is that we tend, unfortunately, those HR managers here, please tell me we're going to change this. We tend to talk about goals of the department, of the team, of the organization, but then we are rewarding individual behavior. We talk about high performers, people for the next MPT, high track individuals. These people are the ones being promoted, go to London, you're posted somewhere else, go to Cape Town. I mean, you're rewarding individual. Do we have rewards for teams? because increasingly, more and more, the world has become technological driven, AI driven, and no one person these days, sincerely, even we know, like, for example, the purchasing decision is about 5-6 people who are involved. All these other their team, and the team now is actually the delivery unit on so much. And the team in itself doesn't have to be a department. If you're in customer service, it could be somebody in finance who deals with credit control, could be the person in the depot who's making the sale. These are the key people that when you have a problem, the customer service network will call the credit guy, will call somebody else, KYC, know your customer, and to be approved. That is actually the real team. So some people say, oh, I'm in a finance team. You're not in finance team. One is doing balance sheet, one is doing, bank reconciliation. Your lives don't touch. So what is a real team that is delivering the result? When we ask heads of units who report to MD, chairman, or above, we're saying, what is your team? Many of them will say, oh, it's my team, which is a first team for you. It's my team, my department team. And we tell them, no, your team is this one you belong to as a collective total to deliver the company results. That is your super team. That's your A team. That's your team one. Your department is a silo. It's where you go now to execute the mandate that you have as a group. And when you hear people saying, my department team, my team, and then you're going to share promotions and awards and everything together, and you're fighting for your team. That's how silos are built up in companies. So it's really important to know, what is my team for the collective result I'm supposed to deliver as a customer service person, or as a P&L, or a CEO. So it's really important to think through of what a team is. It's not just a group of individuals doing work, it's those people who are working continuously in the constant delivery of one single thing. Next slide, please. So great teams set aside their individual needs and focus on what's best for the team. And they emphasize the collective results, which is what I've been talking about. I hope that makes sense. Give me a thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up that on the chat line. Give me a thumbs up. I got it. Yes, I'm hearing you. So I can give it to Vicky back in the last remaining 2 hours, the challenge of putting it all together.
I guess I'd like to see what you think of through when it comes to the distance. But I love what you said, because when we don't have that attention to collective results, then we give way for individual results to come to play. So we must always be putting, we have a collective to deliver. I mean, I am an ID, my result could be to shine, and so I may push an agenda where my name is the one that is the collective result. But so it is so important for a team to really identify what our wildly important goals as a team. Because when we work towards those, then they speak to our own goals as well, even as we progress both as a team and both as individuals. Catherine, before we wind up, what do you have to say?
No, I mean, what you say is absolutely true. And Mary raised something, very, very important, where competition begins to be created within a team when we focus too much on individual results and not on team results. So I need to shine, because then there's a reward awaiting me. So it means I could withhold information from Vicky. It means I could keep something from Vicky so that she doesn't see it, because I'm focused on my results as opposed to looking at the team results. So that mind shift of who is my team and how do we deliver results, and then focusing on team results above individual results, actually really contributes to cohesiveness in the team.
Absolutely. And you see, the way we are rewarding these results, particularly ourselves as leaders, wherever you are, your team leader, your department leader, your CEO, how are you rewarding? Because there's some quiet people somewhere quietly doing their job, nobody sees them, and they're part of they're really a delivery. When they leave is when things fall apart. So, and this is where power play comes. You see a lot of the toxicity and power plays comes from where, as Vicky said, it's not about the collective results, it's power games for my result, because I know this company rewards this and I want to get that. So thank you so much. Over to you, Vicky.
So in a nutshell, what we've just taken you through is the 5 behaviors of a cohesive team model, something that has been talked about and written by Patrick Lenchon in his book. But even as we wind up, I want you to think about high impact teams And the one that comes to mind right now is possibly Formula One, the pit stop, where every second counts. And just observe how, yeah, sometimes they seem like they're fighting, you know. It's deadline, you're like, gosh, these guys are gonna kill each other sometimes, but otherwise it's just efficient. But even when they come back and they think through what happened, what didn't happen, it's usually because the outcome is to deliver even better the next time around. And so that's, I think, what teams are, that yes, we will fail. Sometimes we will fail spectacularly, and sometimes we will actually win, and we will win big. But then the whole point is, since we don't have a straight line from one point to the end, how can we take our teams, make them a safe space, keep building the trust, you know, because trust is like a jar. You have to keep putting in. It's not a one-off event. And every time you erode that trust, what else are you doing to keep putting it back? What habits are you cultivating for that culture? What habits are you cultivating to try and ensure that everyone is talking? Do you start with the post-its and then end up with people having an open-spirited debate? What are we working? What are we rewarding when it comes to commitment? How are we equipping our people to be able to hold each other accountable? Trainings like on feedback. I mean, reading a book like Difficult Conversations, where gives you tips about how to give feedback with grace. I mean, those are all things, because all these things eventually are skills, and they're all geared towards us guys getting what we call collective results. So we would recommend you reading these 3 books. Of course, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni, and then Connecting with Colors by Mary Robinson Reynolds is more about personalities and how they bring themselves to various scenarios and situations. And the book about courage, The Man Who Deserves a Man in the Arena by Brené Brown, Daring Greatly, which talks a lot about vulnerability is the heart of all greatness and all things. With that, if you do want to reach out to us to have a discussion about how we can make your team more cohesive, and the programs that we run around teamwork, and teamwork being the ultimate competitive advantage, you can reach out to us. info@profiles.co.ke. On the chat, we'll be putting our social media handles so that you can just click and you can follow us. You can also call us or WhatsApp us at 0722457777, and you can also visit our website. You can also look us up on our LinkedIn pages. This is Mary Mtomukindia, and then there's Catherine Tole and Vicky Karuga, and we're all on social media, and that's the email addresses that you will get. However, we are here for the next 10 to 15 minutes because we know we've just stopped bang on the time and we haven't given time for interaction, and we'd really love to hear from you. Let us know what what insights you have gained from this session, and any questions that you feel you want to ask, and we can have a short discussion. Mary, what do you think?
I absolutely agree. I'm even happy to stay another 20 minutes. Like I said, I just relocated to the wonderful Bundu of Nyanyuki, and I'm always happy to teach and share and learn. There's one you didn't mention, which I love as people are thinking their questions. And we can even stop the presentation because all the contact details and people can put on their camera so that we can interact with you. I get my energy from people, and we can see who we're speaking to. It's really lovely. One of the examples you always give is an emergency, the ER room of a hospital, and how doctors, nurses, oxygen people, MRI, there's heart specialists, and if you watch medical dramas like I do, they don't know each other. They come on shift. Some have never even met each other every day, huge hospitals. Yet they are able to work on a patient seamlessly. And I love that example you use about cohesive. First of all, there's trust. And it's not predictive trust, because I don't know you. I don't know where you came from, India, Kenya, UK, wherever. But they trust each other, and it's vulnerability. They sometimes make mistakes and they share it. And they even talk about cases when things go wrong. And there's a commitment for the collective result for the patient. And I'm sure you can say more. I just love how they work seamlessly as a very effective team, having never worked together, don't know each other, no predictive, it's predictive-based trust that you know your job, I know mine, and they hold each other accountable for that oxygen, for this, give him that. I just love it. So if you want to say a little bit about that as people can put up your hands, please. Let's see using that emoji for hands up. And let's see some of the faces listening here. We can see so many beautiful names from all over Africa, Botswana, Uganda, as you said, and elsewhere. Let's just, Irongo is on. Fantastic. First person put on their thing. Go ahead.
Hi, Mary, and thanks so much for this session. Listening in from Nairobi here. So I guess for me, the challenge has always been really to keep a collective approach to some of the work that we do, given some of the risks of the human rights organizing, but also, I guess, the unpredictability of the context that everything changes, we find every 90 minutes. So the challenge has been really, how do you keep a group of people, particularly when we're not working, I guess, in the office all the time. We're still on hybrid, so 2 days a week. So it's actually more challenging to create trust and I guess a collective hunting, I guess, approach to our work. So I wondered whether you had any those organizations.
Yeah, I see Vicky. Let me take that question. Absolutely. I mean, I'm actually working with an international UN organization that's working in huge emergencies. I mean, all over. And these people are in very stressful, dire straits, particularly with the things that have been happening in our neighboring countries. And every day they're in some situation. And they really brought in people like myself and others, and they've developed a program themselves with other experts on emotional intelligence to really get people to get in touch on who they are and be aware of others so that they can understand and be able to create boundaries. Because sometimes people like you who work in this field, you take on it so much, it becomes so heavy, and you sometimes need to ensure that you're creating boundaries between yourself and your work, just for your own well-being. Because we say a well leader is going to be a good leader, and not working very long hours, getting stressed, doing all the things that they need to do, and just going into being, because most of the time it's action, 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 and you wear out and you're not a good leader. And then you give the same example to your team to wear themselves out, working all these hours. Yes, you're helping your man, you're doing good things, but you come first and you have to really be aware. So we take them through that. And one of the components is really well-being. We give them tips on what are the 4 parameters, and particularly from emotional intelligence, Vicky taught us about, you're doing physiological strategies, but are you also using thinking strategies? And we give tips on all of those. Are you giving what we call environmental strategies of the space, the time, block out your calendars, and then also we're talking about relationship strategies, having good relationships with people, even offline, and making sure you have good relations with people. You have a team, people you can rely on, people, and doing things that give you joy, giving talks, having a relationship with people, because that brings you down. But it is a tough thing, and having to understand that people have to manage themselves. Because when you're well managed, you're well balanced, you can be a good leader, but you protect yourself first. I hope that makes a little bit of sense. And building relationships is very, very important. And approaching people, not through the work. We always tell leaders, you're not responsible for the results. You're responsible for the people who are responsible for the results. So the people come first. And once they see that you are caring about them, they will give you such high results because they're motivated, because you see them as people.
And maybe I could just add to what Mary said, in terms of, Vicky had mentioned earlier about building trust and having informal engagements that allow that. So really, even though you're in a virtual environment, what can you do virtually? What virtual hangouts can you do? Virtual connections can you do? Where we meet not just for work, but we can actually meet to hang out virtually, get to know each other, get to bond as a team, just do things that then get us out of work mode, but interact with each other just as humans and get to know each other. Now, those are some of the things that then can help with those trust building moments.
No, thank you for that question. It's very relevant, and I'm sure it's answered a lot of people who are quiet, but they're saying, okay, I got something. So you all others, put it in the chat if you don't want to put face to it. Put it in the chat.
There's a question. As a leader, how might you bring back, help restore a team member that has experienced bounce back? I think the saying for, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime, comes to mind. I think there's a lot that we have to do in terms of skilling. And sometimes we take the fact that we have been able to develop that skill for granted. And so because you've been able to sort your own way out of how you take care of your well-being, you might naturally assume that someone else will do it as well. It's really important, as Mary is saying, to keep cultivating the habit of teaching, mentoring, and allowing others to learn. So you might bring someone who has experienced burnout to possibly a center where they can go through, whether it's counseling or therapy, whatever that looks like. But teaching the general collective on how to build resilience, I think, is more important, because then we're talking about that same accountability that you're raising for the team, and they're saying, hey, you, the way you're going, you've been out yesterday, you've been this, that they're going to be the ones that hold each other accountable. And now not you as a leader who's always holding other people accountable as to their own well-being. So I think there is a lot of skilling that we need to do for our teams, just like I was mentioning in terms of even feedback and accountability, teaching people the art of saying the truth. Yeah.
And
what
Vicky,
I would say to that question.
Vicky, you've just reminded me that, you know, in the other program I take, the Female Future program, it's 10 years now. We've been doing for 10 years, which was introduced by the Norwegians after they passed the law. About 40% of all public institutions and through the pipeline must be women. Brought it to Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, then Ghana, and they're moving out. Now actually they're making a law, not just public organization, any person. They're about to make it law. Any company, private or otherwise, you must have 40% women. And, you know, one of the things that we talk about, the leadership pipeline, you know, the way you're hired, you just hired you as the expert. So you do your accounting, your engineering, your architecture, you're alone. Then you're given somebody else of the same ilk, the same technical version, finance to manage. But as you go up and start managing a small unit, and then a department, then a region, then you go up, you move away from your technical expertise. You move away now into leading people and managing that, and nobody teaches those skills. Very few companies are teaching the human man in psychology. How does the brain work? All the neuroscience we've learned from emotional intelligence and how to deal with people, because we're a very complex being. And unfortunately, because there's not that teaching, people start to hang on to their technical competency, and now micromanaging their people. I want to see the template, let me see the lines. And now the boss is here dealing with details because he doesn't have, or she doesn't have, the skilling to understand as you move up the unit, what different skills you should have. And that's why I'm so happy that I've re-engineered myself to move into this new side of the softer skills, because the world is getting to be a very complex place and we need these skills taught. How do you manage teams? How do you incentivize? How do you provide psychological safety? How do you incentivize an employee who's burnt out? That was a fantastic question. They are very complex and nobody has the answer because it's all very situational. So more needs to be done in this area. And I'm glad so many people came on to this webinar.
Okay. Well, let me thank you, Mary, so much for your time as well. Well spent, I must say. Thank you for sharing this stage with me. Thank you so much, Catherine, for coming on board and being part of this team where we talk about and deliver this class on how to, small ways that we can build truly cohesive teams. It's been an absolute pleasure talking about it. And for the rest of you all, thank you so much for coming and listening in. You've made my day. Some of the comments are so interesting. Others were very serious. Others were insightful. And I hope you've taken away something and at least one thing that you can do. And as I said, do call us or write to us and we will be more than happy to come on board to help you with your teams. Thank you so much from wherever you are. Have a lovely evening or a lovely night or a lovely afternoon. Take care and God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Grace. Thank you, Grace. Yeah.
Thank you, Ezekiel. Thank you, Lomhosi. Thank you, Maximila. Thank you, Gladys. Thank you, Dole. Thanks, Biha. Thank you, Annette. Thank you, Jeff.
Make me co-host.
You want to be made co-host? Yes. Thank you, Edith.
Yeah.